Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the PPS Group, I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Hayley Brown, and I am the Executive of Business Development here at PPS Investments. Before we start, I think we've got quite a few people joining us for this meeting, so I want to welcome you all. Thank you so much. For those joining from all corners of South Africa, in Cape Town and surrounds, I think the rain is coming, so it's a good reason to stay indoors and stay safe. My parents tell me that they're bunkering down in Johannesburg and buying lots of firewood in case of load shedding. And my hometown of Bloemfontein is deceptively, I think, 19 degrees today with clear sunny skies. But when the day starts at -2 degrees, it takes a full day to warm up. And then I think we have the rest of the people rest of the people in Durban, PE and East London, but we don't mention them because at 25 degrees, I think they're all wrapped up in jerseys, but while all of us Bloemfonteинers would be on the beach. So as you may be aware, since January, we have been communicating to you about the PPS RA and the 0% administration fee offer available to you. This session is about answering key questions that you, our members, have been asking us over the last few months. We thought it best to go straight to the source and made sure we bring out our big heavy hitters to ensure that you can hear it directly from the leaders driving this opportunity. Our first speaker is the chairperson of the PPS RA Fund, James Downie. James has been the chairperson of the fund for the last 10 years, a board member of the PPS Holding Trust and board member of PPS Insurance Company. He has also been an independent retirement fund trustee for over 25 years, and he's proud to say that he's a PPS member for 30 years. James, we'd love to see your profit share statement. He will provide you with insight into the vision of the board, why the offer, and most importantly, why now. Also joining us is the Chief Operating Officer of PPS Investments, James Fraser. James has been in the financial industry for over a decade and has fulfilled many roles during this time. He's well versed in all matters within our business, and over the last 5 years has been a key driver in implementing the strategic enhancements in PPS Investments. He will focus on the impact of costs on your retirement savings and the tools that we have built to assist you in making the right decision for your RA. So firstly, I would like to start our discussion today by talking about evolution. Evolution is a gradual, steady journey, and we don't see the constant change that is taking place until enough time has passed. Something that was so fundamental to our daily lives and met our needs at that point in time can look quite archaic to us now. And it's easy to relate to that with what the land phone did for us for 30 years ago compared to what the smartphone provides us with today. Our needs have changed, our lives have adapted, and we have ended up needing something different. And so the smartphone has become the new fundamental thing to our daily lives. Similarly, PPS has evolved over the last 79 years, from providing income protection in 1941 to a fully diversified financial group today. Adapting over time to the ever-changing needs of our members, now providing you with investments, short-term, medical aid and insurance to name but a few. Through all this evolution, the one thing that has not changed is our core values. We are still a member of a focused business and all our decisions are still made with our members' best interest at heart. I will now hand over to James Downie, chairperson of the PPS RA Fund, who will take us through the fund's evolution and its vision for its members. James.
Thanks, Hayley, and thanks to everybody that's joined the webinar today. I think the one thing that lockdown has taught us or made obvious to us is how easy it is to reach out to a large number of people. We've tried to do various roadshows before in the past with probably, I guess, disappointing turnout. It's very expensive to do when we travel all around the country, and quite often the venues don't suit you and it's difficult to get to. This is just a fantastic way for us as trustees to be able to chat to you, answer your questions, and really encourage you to use the Q&A function on your screen to ask questions. You've got us in front of you right now, and we'll answer as many as we can. As Hayley said, I've been a trustee on the RA Fund for more than 10 years and chair for most of that time. My entire life has been in retirement funds and investments, and it's my passion to help people reach their retirement targets. It's been a passion of mine all that time. At the moment, the fund has about 100,000 members, and we look after for you 30 billion rands worth of your assets spread across a vast range of investments, which we'll talk about as we go through the seminar. We are 6 trustees. We've been a strong unit for many years together. We're all completely independent of PPS, including the principal officer of the fund. Haley did mention I'm a director and trustee on other boards in the group, but as a non-executive independent director, I'm not employed by PPS. My sole job is to look after your money, basically your welfare in the RA Fund. On the board, we have a diverse range of skills, accountants, an actuary, investment specialist. We've got legal boffins. We've got one of our trustees sits on boards in the regulator's office, although she's not employed by them. She's also independent there. And so we have a very diverse board with very diverse skills. So our sole job is to look after your welfare, your assets, your retirement annuity. There are 2 sections in the fund, which we'll get to in a moment. But I think just to go back in history, in 1960, 60 years ago, the PPS RA Fund, Retirement Annuity Fund, was launched. It was launched in very close association with Sanlam, and those of you who have some old policies will have a contract that is indistinguishable from a Sanlam contract. PPS in those days was a separate sort of legal entity, had no insurance license, no investment license, no multi-manager license, so everything was done in collaboration with Sanlam in those days. And the relationship with Sanlam since then has been extraordinary, and we've worked together really well. In the early 2000s, under the then chief executive, PPS started to evolve very quickly, in much the same way as Haley alluded to, going from a landline to a smartphone. PPS became a fully fledged financial services organization. We now have an insurance license, we have an investment management company, we have a multi-manager, we have a short-term insurance company, a healthcare administration company. It's a very complex financial services company now. And in 2010, we launched what's known as Section B of the fund. It's really important for you to understand that we did not launch another fund. It's just another section within the PPS Retirement Annuity Fund. So we now have 2 sections of the same fund. Section A is the old Sanlam version. Section B is the, sorry, can we go back to the previous slide? Section B is the new generation version of the fund or section of the fund, and the big difference is that in Section A you buy a policy from Sanlam with all the constraints, fees, and everything that comes with buying a policy. In Section B, all you do is enter into a contract with the fund to make some contributions when you feel like it, as and when you feel like it, into a structure called a retirement annuity, where you get the same benefits as you do, tax benefits, and much, much more flexibility. And we'll talk a little bit later about these pesky penalties that one has to pay in the policy section. So right from the start, from 2010, when we launched Section B, so-called intra-fund conversions were possible. And they were possible literally from day one, and many, many members have effected or conducted those intra-fund conversions. However, the big constraint is that the conversion involves basically cancelling your Sanlam policy and switching to Section B. That means that in terms of the policy conditions, there may well be so-called early termination penalties payable. And these can be quite heavy, and what we're trying to do is to make an offer to you to effect a change from basically the old landline phone to a smartphone. It's within the same fund. The graphic there shows that all you're doing is moving from one section to another. In 2012, we realized that it really was a smartphone versus a landline, and so we closed Section A to new business. But let me really stress here, about 75% of the members and 75% of the assets of the fund are still in Section A. So the trustees make no distinction between the two. We look after all the members in both sections in equal fashion. We hold Sanlam as administrator of Section A and the administrator of Section B to identical scrutiny. The investment managers have to respond to us the same way, and we make no distinction between the two funds or the two sections of the fund. Why have we taken so long to come up with this offer now? Really, it was that early termination penalty. When the policy is young, or just after you've taken it out, or if you're still quite some distance from retirement, the termination penalties can be quite onerous. And the balance of the decision for you is, do you benefit by the lower costs in Section B to the extent that you can overcome the penalty payable in Section A? And that's where you really need some help. It's not an easy decision. The switch itself is very easy, but the decision about how to make that switch, is it the right thing for me? Do the lower costs offset the penalty payable? That's where you need some help from somebody who knows the ins and outs of both sections. So as we said, the possibility to do that intra-fund conversion has been there from the day we launched Section B. It's now 10 years later, and we monitor the membership all the time. It's now 10 years later that we can see that many of those penalties are very squarely in the range that it's worth making that intra-fund conversion. The people, obviously, you, the members, have been members for 10 years longer, and those penalties have reduced to the extent that it really is worthwhile for many of you to make that change. So to facilitate that change, what we've done in association with PPS Investments is to make an offer to you, the members, to switch from Section A to Section B, or essentially do that intra-fund conversion. And it will cost you nothing to do so, the switch itself. And for 5 years at least thereafter, you will pay no admin fees at all. You will still pay investment fees to the underlying investment managers, but you will pay no admin fee whatsoever. And we'll have an example on the next slide when we get there, just to give you some clarity on what that means. If you do that switch, you will then be able to choose from a long list, which James Fraser will show you in his section, of funds from conservative to aggressive, onshore, offshore, shares, fixed interest, cash, you name it. It's a very comprehensive list, but it is a limited list of PPS branded investment products. The big advantage is that by doing so, you will be able to add to your profit share account. And that is probably PPS's worst kept secret, is the profit share account. And anything you can do to be able to add to your profit share account, which is a tax-free benefit when you eventually retire, is obviously a good idea. And the new section is completely and utterly flexible, which the Section A is not. if you stop your contributions in Section A, the penalty becomes payable. Even if you aren't transferring, it's just like times like this, where times are tough and we're all finding it difficult to pay bills. You go to your insurance company, and I stress this is not just Sanlam. This is any insurance company that sells a policy-based retirement annuity. They're all the same. They all have these early termination penalties. And the insurance company is going to say to you, sorry for you that your business is not got any revenue and you can't afford to pay the premiums. There's a penalty on your policy. That doesn't apply in Section B. You simply stop contributing, and there are no penalties. There's no downside. Your investments still carry on performing the way they would with or without contributions, and when your business recovers again, you'll be able to just simply start the contributions again. You can pay monthly, you can pay annually, you can pay as and when you like. It's completely flexible. And you can switch between any fund on that list, again, for no cost, and very flexibly, very easily. If we go on to the next slide, and we'll have a look at an example of what this admin fee offer really is. So a client who's older than 61, let's have a look at somebody who's probably looking towards retirement. I think most of us professionals these days, we had our dreams of retiring when we were 50. Those dreams are fairly quickly dispelled, I think, for many of us. So our client who's 60, or a member who's 61, let's take a 64-year-old client who does an intra-fund conversion now, almost certainly a 64-year-old will have no penalty to pay. They're that close to retirement. The policy has been going that long that their penalty will be negligible or zero. You then effect the intra-fund conversion, you'll pay 0 admin fee for 5 years. In this particular case, until that member is 69, if that's when they choose to retire. If they choose to retire later than that, then the fees will start to be payable from age 70 onwards. If it's a member who's younger than 61, let's say a 54-year-old member, and that member does an intra-fund conversion, and it's entirely possible that a younger member also has a smaller penalty. If that 54-year-old, for example, started the policy when they were 24, straight out of probably qualifying as a professional, there may well be a very small penalty payable. That member will pay 0 admin fees until age 66. In this case, a period of 12 years, 0 admin fee. James Fraser is going to expand more on the deal and what it means to you as members. When he's finished, we'll answer as many questions as we can in the time that we have available. Thanks very much. Over to you, James.
Cool. Thank you very much, James. Great introduction there. Just a reminder again to use that Q&A section on the right-hand side of your screen. We've got a number of questions coming through, but this is your opportunity to ask us all your questions, the difficult ones, the easy ones. We have tried to adapt this webinar, which we've run a couple of times, to address some of the common questions that have come through, but there's always new perspectives, so please make it a bit more interactive and put those questions in. As James and Haley have said, I'm going to run through a bit more detail around the retirement fund and the special offer and PPS investments itself around that section B. I am going to repeat a couple of things that have been said before, but it's because those are very important parts. So yeah, let's run through this now. So just to recap, the fund has 2 sections. The old underwritten section of the fund, which we call Section A, and the new generation unit trust section, which we call Section B. And the fact that these are both sections of the same fund is very important because of that unique feature that James Downie mentioned, which is the intra-fund conversion. It's a much simpler process. It's a much faster process to transfer to a different fund. Transferring in the same fund is much faster and simpler. Some things remain the same though. So the professional independent board of trustees that James mentioned, the various pension fund regulations like Regulation 28, which we're getting a couple of questions on in the Q&A part of the webinar, and the same tax benefits, they all apply. But some of the differences I'm going to go through in the next few slides and try and answer 2 really important questions. will moving to the new generation section of the fund actually benefit you? And then how do costs impact on your retirement savings? So what are the benefits of moving? James mentioned a couple of them earlier, which is around the flexibility and transparency of Section B of the fund. And it'll also provide you with additional benefits of the PPS Investments platform, which I cover in a couple of slides later on. And importantly, you get access to the profit share allocation for qualifying PPS members. And I'll talk through a bit more of how that works later on in terms of the investment space. But what does flexibility and transparency actually mean? It means that you have no transaction costs if you want to change your investment option. It means no penalties if you choose to change your debit order. You can start and stop and increase and decrease with no cost. All fees are clearly defined and communicated. And remember, in this case, if you take advantage of the offer, the administration fee is 0. You also have the flexibility to retire from the legal regulated age of 55. You can retire early, or you can delay your retirement, or you can retire on that age 66, which is sort of a date defined from the insurance side of the PPS business when the sickness benefit usually ends. You'll also have full access to the PPS Investments secure online portal, where you can view your statements, download tax certificates, and that has been one of our key focuses over the last 2 to 3 years, is to develop our digital engagement for our financial advisors, but also for our clients, and allow supporting advisors to interact with their clients in a much more digital way going forward. So we've introduced digital signatures or electronic signatures over the last couple of years. So there's no paper required, and that's very important in this lockdown environment where you can't see people face to face. You might not have a scanner at home, you might not have a printer at home. So we really have tried to digitize as much as possible. And that enables your advisor to send you transactions related to the PPS Investments part of the business online, and for you to sign that either on your phone or via a website. Okay, now to address an important question I asked earlier. Is an intra-fund conversion right for you? Unfortunately, the answer is that it depends. There's no one size fits all to retirement. Everyone's journey is unique. You've all joined the Section A of the fund at different times, so those penalties that James spoke about earlier will vary across the maturity of your policies. So that's why we feel it's very important that you engage with a financial advisor, because this is an important decision to make. And one thing to make clear is it's transferring now might not be the right thing for all members at this point in time. But I'll talk to some tools that we've created to help us with that decision in a future slide. So we do really recommend getting advice from a PPS accredited financial advisor who can look at your holistic situation, not just this single pot of savings that you have in Section A of the fund, and take all your circumstances into account. And we partner with over 2,500 independent financial advisors. So again, these are independent financial advisors who will give you independent advice around whether this is the right thing to do or not. And an important component, but not the only component of the decision, will be around costs and how they impact your retirement savings. And as I mentioned earlier, we've built an easy to use tool called the Retirement Cost Calculator that illustrates the impact of costs on your retirement savings, with a specific focus at the moment on Section A and B, but the same tool could be used for transferring from any other retirement fund to the PPS Investments platform. So the slide that we're showing you now shows the output of that tool, which you and your advisor can work on together. The inputs are fairly simple and are very factual. They include the current value of your retirement annuity, your retirement date or maturity date, any existing debit order information, any of those termination charges or penalties that James Downie mentioned earlier, and something called an effective annual cost, or all the costs and fees involved in the investment. And that is an industry standard which was created to allow clients and advisors to compare costs between different providers on a like-for-like basis. So it is an industry standard. So be sure to have this information to hand when you use the tool. And the last slide in my presentation provides the place of where to get that information from. But again, talking to your financial advisor, they will be able to support you through the process. As I said before, this is all factual information, allows for a fair comparison. And these are illustrative outputs based on the costs of your retirement savings in Section A, and what the impact will be in your retirement savings in Section B. So just to explain the bar chart, to try and make it obvious of what you need to look for, The blue bar is if you do nothing, you remain in section A. And the following 4 bars show you the impact of transferring to section B now, that's the first bar, in 1, 3 or 5 years. And basically the key thing to look out for is if there's a green block on top of the grey bars, this indicates that your retirement savings would be higher if you transferred to section B based purely on the impact of costs. As I say, that's one of the key areas to look at, but not the only one. And that's why, depending on that termination charge, it might not be the right time to transfer now. It might be 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. And that's why it's critical to have that conversation with your financial advisor. Something that's excluded from these comparisons, to make sure it's like for like, is that the profit share allocations are excluded from this calculation. So that is an additional benefit you get from moving. There's also something called the family network, which I'll talk to you about later, which is also a benefit for you around consolidating all of your investments on the PPS Investments platform. That gives you an additional benefit, which isn't shown in that slide. Another important decision, and again, it talks to a couple of the questions we're getting in the Q&A, is which investment option to select. Now, this zero fee offer until retirement is linked to the full range of PPS funds. So you must invest into a PPS fund to take advantage of the zero administration fee. But as James mentioned earlier, our fund range is comprehensive. It covers various risk profiles, local and offshore, passive and active, multi-managed and single manager funds. So we're confident that we have a solution set that is well diversified and can achieve your unique retirement goals. To explain a bit more about that profit share allocation I mentioned earlier, at PPS Investments, profit share is usually earned at 2 levels. So one is what we call the product wrapper, which is the retirement annuity fund, the tax-free investment account, the living annuity type of product. And the second level is the actual PPS Investments option. So this list of funds we're talking about now. Now, because this special offer has 0 administration fees, for this pot of assets, you would only earn profit share on the underlying investment option, this list of funds. But for all other assets you have with PPS Investments, you would earn at both levels. And I'll talk more about some additional benefits that we've got around the profit share later on as well. So what now if you make the decision to move now or in a year's time? Well, PPS as a group is well known for its life insurance solutions, which end at retirement, usually with the payment of your profit share account. However, as mentioned earlier, the expansion of the PPS group to include short-term insurance, medical aid, financial planning and investments has extended that relationship with PPS members to a lifetime of mutuality, not just your working life, a lifetime of mutuality. And this is really important because PPS members live a lot longer than the general population, a lot longer, which means saving enough for retirement can be a challenge. So we ideally see PPS members using their profit share account as a supplement to their retirement savings and use it to ensure that their retirement is more comfortable going forward. So once you've decided to retire, PPS Investments can provide you with an income in retirement, either through a living annuity, but we also have a hybrid annuity, which combines the best of a living annuity and a guaranteed annuity. And there's been lots of articles in the press recently around the benefits of that hybrid offering, which again, you can talk to your financial advisor about. In addition, when your profit share account vests, it is administered by PPS Investments. So you can see it alongside all of your other investments and can simply set up a regular withdrawal to supplement that income that I spoke to you earlier. I also mentioned that earlier that another benefit of moving to Section B was being a client of PPS Investments and having access to our comprehensive investment platform. So on the next slide, I outline a couple of the benefits there. So one of the key things is that we have the full product range, which I mentioned earlier, across the retirement funds, post-retirement products, tax-free investments, etc., etc. But a key thing that's different to other areas of the PPS group is that we have products for both members and non-members. And that's critical in some of the things I'm going to talk to you now. So qualifying members earn profit share, as I spoke to earlier, at those 2 levels. But what can also happen is a member can link to non-members, usually PPS family members, to earn even more profit share. So if you have family members who do not qualify for PPS, if their investments are on the platform, you as a member can link to those assets and earn profits, additional profits on those assets. The second benefit around the family side of things is what we call the family network or bulk buying. So PPS has a sliding scale of administration fees. It goes from 50 basis points to 1.5 million, 20 basis points up to 5 million, and 10 basis points after 5 million. So the more assets you have on the platform, the less fees you pay. And what this family network does is it allows you, again, to link to family members who are on the platform and to consolidate all of those assets to put them on that sliding scale. And by doing that, the full family benefits from that lower fee across all of those investments. So that's a huge benefit that you get that isn't offered anywhere else. So it really pays to consolidate your assets on the PPS Investments platform from a profit share perspective and also an ongoing fees perspective. We also have access to top asset managers. So in addition to those PPS funds that I spoke to earlier, you can also access a select range of third-party managers on the platform as well. And then our digital engagement is something, again, we focused on. We're quite proud of our new secure site. We also have an app. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to do business with us through your financial advisor or directly. And we actually work with financial advisors and clients to get feedback. So we're constantly evolving that digital engagement. So on the last slide that I have, this is the page where you can find out more information. If we don't answer your question today, or you just want to find out more. So if you visit www.pps.co.za/PPS RA, in the column on the left-hand side, that talks to where you can go to that calculator that I mentioned earlier to get the EAC or cost information and the termination fees. The contact details for the Sanlam administrators are there to get that information. You can also contact the PPS Investments Contact Centre through your financial advisor, and we can arrange that information for you as well. The full list of fund range is listed in the second column if you want to find out more about the funds. And then the actual process itself is in that third column. So how to actually do an intra-fund conversion. As I said before, it's a very simple process. So at this point, I'd like to hand back to Hayley, and we can start answering a lot of your questions. A lot have flooded in, but please keep on adding.
Yes, thanks so much, James. Just looking at the questions, yeah, we've got tons of them coming in, so I think let's just get straight and cracking. So what we've got is we've got a few questions in the that you guys have been asking us, and we're just publishing those, and hopefully there are some questions that are repeated, so hopefully we will cover your question, not necessarily from yourself, but other people that are asking very similar questions. So I think let's get stuck in. The first question that we have published, there's two points to that, and I think it's a lot of individuals are asking this, which is about almost when is the right time to move. So from Anonymous, we have, I currently pay into the Retirement Annuity Fund from Sanlam. Next year, I'm turning 65. Is it advisable to do an intra-fund transfer to the PPS Investments, firstly at my age, and you want to work another 2 to 3 years? That's great to hear. And should I draw my pension with 65 or pay my contribution as long as I'm working? What are the pros and cons? So I think for the first section of that, I don't know, James, Downie, is that potentially something that you could look to tackle?
Hayley, happy to. I think the most important, I guess, part of the question is that this member's invested in something called the Stable Bonus Fund at Sanlam, and we don't have a similar product to that on the PPS investment side. The Stable Bonus Fund is exactly what it says. But you need to be an insurance company to be able to smooth out the investment returns over time. All of the funds that are subject to the offer are market related. Admittedly, I mean, some of them are cash and very, very low risk, but they don't have the same return profile as the Stable Bonus Fund. In terms of the members' other question, we obviously have to be really careful not to advise. We're not that member's advisor, and without knowing everything else about that member, we could just simply give the wrong advice. So it's critical for that member to get an advisor. PPS has them if he or she doesn't have one. There'll be lots of pros and cons there, but the big thing I think is that we don't have something like the Stable Bonus Fund, to be quite honest. Hayley, can I pick up another one or two of the questions
Yeah, I think the big one that's coming through is about the Reg 28 compliance, where we've got a lot of people saying, I'm currently sitting in 100% offshore, whether it be equities, and wanting to move, given what market conditions are doing, what should I do?
Okay, let's just explain what Regulation 28 is. It's part of the Pension Funds Act, and the retirement annuity is governed by the Pension Funds Act. A retirement annuity is essentially a one-person pension fund. But in 2011, Regulation 28 was changed. What it does, Regulation 28, is it limits where you're allowed to invest your RA money. But at the moment, for example, only 75% of it can be in shares. Only 30% of it can be offshore. And there's a fairly long list of similar sorts of constraints which govern hedge funds and private equity and all sorts of other things. In the past, there have been a couple of occasions where Sanlam, on their balance sheet, has enabled members either to invest 100% in shares, because their entire balance sheet still satisfied that 75% requirement, or they've allowed members to go 100% offshore, and for similar reasons. Those members in 2011 were, it's an old-fashioned word, but they were, the word we use is they were grandfathered. That means that in 2011, when the constraints of Regulation 28 changed, all those members who were either in 100% equity or 100% offshore, or in any other way did not comply with Regulation 28, they were allowed to stay where they were as long as they didn't change anything. So if they change their premium, if they stop their premium, if they switch R1 of their investment to something else, their grandfathering falls away. This intra-fund conversion would do that. It will undo the grandfathering. So if you are happy with your 100% equity RA or your 100% offshore RA, then this intra-fund conversion is not for you, because you will lose that when you do the intra-fund conversion.
Thanks, James. I think just to add to that, that if we look at the funds that are available to do the intra-fund conversion, we do have an equity fund which you can form or put together to make sure that it's Reg 28. And we do have our recently launched global equity feeder fund, which is also part of the solution set of funds that you can transfer into, obviously making sure that it maintains its Reg 28 status. Great. I think moving on to a few more questions. This one, I think for James Fraser, there seems to be a question around, is there any benefit for members to close their retirement change into Section B? There are likely no penalties, but is there possible more benefits in the non-contributory time after retirement to stay with the policy-based Section A of the fund? And I think that can potentially talk to the retirement cost calculator that you mentioned earlier.
Sure. Yeah, so there are a number of members who are at that position where there is a very low termination fee. So we do feel that if you go to that retirement cost calculator, talk to your financial advisor, you'll see if there is still a benefit for you to move. Generally, we found that there is, the costs are lower, and we also have those other benefits of the PPS Investments platform around the profit sharing, which isn't available in Section A, and also that family network pricing if assets are consolidated across the family members. So we've definitely seen from the people who have decided to convert already, in fact, the bulk of people who transferred already are those ones who are close to retirement. And I think some of the feedback there has also been around those post-retirement options that we have on the platform as well, and the continuing option to share in the profits going forward in that area as well. So I'd actually say that it's more the people who have those lower termination fees who are deciding to change at the moment, and the ones with the higher termination fees, that's where the retirement cost calculator is saying, actually think about doing it later on. And that's why we want to maintain that relationship and make sure that you're aware of when the right time to move across is. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, no,
Maybe if I could add to that,
Sure.
I think the big advantage of the Section B is that when one does retire, even if you're in a non-contributory phase now, the switch from your pre-retirement contributions to a living annuity within PPS is a painless event. It's retirement is a can be quite a traumatic event. You don't want to add to it by financial trauma as well. If you're in Section B, you can stay invested in exactly the same investment product. All that happens is you change your status from being a pre-retirement member to a living annuity member. And it really is painless. It's completely seamless. It's a matter of, literally putting a tick in a box.
Great, thanks, James. I'm just going to answer two questions from Justin Brown. He asked, when does the offer close? The offer has been extended to the end of September, so you're able to take up this offer to the end of September. Second question from Justin, and also somebody who's asking about 10X and also wanting to cover the PPS funds. A question around who manages the PPS funds and what do we think about 10X? They seem to be less expensive than PPS. So just to give you an overview of the PPS funds, you can see on your screens at the moment, we've got a wide range of risk profiled funds that are available to our members. Those funds are consisting of multi-managed funds, which means that we have a team that selects and goes through a research process to ensure that we have managers that are managing those funds that have gone through sort of a strict requirements. And we have underlying managers include Coronation, Prescient, 91. So within each of the multi-managed funds, you do have a collection of very distinguished and very respected managers that manage those funds. Then we also have something called the partnership range, where through the same research process we have identified managers of excellence and then have partnered with those managers to manage the partnership funds. So within that range we have partnered with Tantalum, the likes of Tantalum, the likes of 361. So that would entail the partnership funds. I think also then to cover on the 10X question, a 10X is primarily offering passive type of funds. Within the PPS range, we do have the PPS Balanced Index Tracker Fund. So that is a fund that you could look at that would also look to sort of compete in that passive space. So when you're looking at comparing, make sure that we always sort of say apples with apples. 10X, as we say, offer passive types of funds. So if you look at the PPS Balanced Index Tracker Fund as a sort of alternative. And I think the other big thing is making use of this offer, you do have that 0% administration fee that will obviously impact the fees on your investments. I don't know if either James has anything to add to either of those questions.
No, I think you covered it well. Yeah, unless somebody asks another question, I think that's good.
Yes, great. Okay, so what we've got is a question around, is it wise to be moving investments now during the unstable markets as a result of the pandemic? Is PPS revising their outlook on fund returns? So I think this is around the timing aspect. So James, Downie, I don't know if you want to perhaps look to tackle this one.
Yes, thanks, Hayley. There's never a right time to move one's investments, but equally there's never a wrong time. So if you are invested in, and this doesn't necessarily apply purely to the retirement annuity, it applies to any switch of investments. If the market has fallen, everybody says you shouldn't, you should never switch your investments after the market has fallen. But if you're moving from a market, let's say a share portfolio, to another share portfolio, then you are selling something that's dropped and buying something that's dropped. If you go at the top of the market, you are selling something that's done jolly well, but then you are buying something that's done jolly well as well. So, you sell cheap and you buy cheap, or you sell expensive and you buy expensive. So there is no right time, and anybody that thinks they can time the market to time, nobody rings a bell at the bottom and nobody rings a bell at the top. So in terms of, is it the right time to move? The fact that we're living in volatile times I mean, it was volatile before the virus came along. It's even more volatile now. Is, you know, I don't think the member should try and time it or be fussed about it. That it's just, you know, if it's the right thing to do according to the calculator and according to the professional advice you get, then don't worry about whether the timing is right for the switch. Haley, I must admit, I'm sort of desperate to answer another question, if I may, please.
Of course. I'm also looking at these questions going, I also want to get stuck in a lot of questions around family, assets, etc. So go for it.
I mean, we had two elephants in the room. One was Regulation 28, and the other elephant in the room that we simply cannot ignore is these termination penalties that so many members are complaining about. And they've come through in a couple of different ways. So if I may, please just talk to that termination penalty.
Please
the
do.
way the old-fashioned policies were sold. What happened was that, let's say in 1985, you bought a retirement annuity from any insurance company. This is not pointing the finger at Sanlam. It's just the way all the insurance companies sold their policies in those days. And it wasn't just retirement annuities. It applied to endowments. It applied to all sorts of other policies as well. In the first 2 years, the insurance company paid the commissions to the person who sold you that policy, for those commissions for the entire duration of your policy. So basically, your advisor in those days sold you a policy, in the next 2 years, got the entire 30, 40, 50-year commission in the first 2 years. And one of the questions was, I never saw my advisor again. Well, to some extent, that's why you never saw your advisor again, because they got their commission, their full period commission paid in 2 years. What that means is that the insurance company has now run up a debt, because that was the way it happened in those days, was that they've paid out a 30-year commission in 2 years. They now need to get that money back. And they are running a loan account, if you like, on your policy. And that's why these termination penalties apply. One of the questions, and it's almost inescapable, the insurance companies have come in for a lot of flack about this, but it is a fact that the insurance companies are owed the money. If you switch to a Section B type retirement annuity, the advisor is paid as and when you make a contribution. They're paid their fee as and when you make a contribution, and a much smaller commission over a regular period of time. It's within their interest to carry on looking after you, servicing you, helping you, because this 2-year acceleration of commission doesn't apply anymore. Advisors are only paid as and when. There was a question that did come through, and perhaps not everybody saw it, about why PPS hadn't done more to argue with Sanlam about these penalties. I can promise you, I personally have sat in the Sanlam Chief Executive's office several times, arguing on your behalf about these termination penalties. And all the insurance companies are absolutely steadfast that they will continue to charge these penalties. It may change. The regulator may at some stage stop them doing it, but you know, in terms of fighting on your behalf about these penalties, I personally have really gone to battle on your behalf, and the insurance companies are just standing fast on it. Thanks, Haley.
Thanks, James. I think it's important to note that, as you said, there were a few questions coming through on about the penalty, and I think that's weighing top of mind. And I think that is why we have this offer that we are providing to our members to allow them to have this opportunity. I'd like to have another few questions that I'd like to pose to James Fraser. There's a few questions sort of asking around profit share and how it works, and I think one of the questions was around will my monthly contribution stay the same? again, seems like I have to pay the additional profit share contribution. So I think if we could maybe just unpack exactly how the profit share works in this offer, and also just profit share holistically for members that are on this call today.
Sure, no problem. I think the key starting point is the profit share isn't linked to your monthly contribution at all. And one of the benefits of moving from Section A to Section B is you have total flexibility on those monthly contributions. You can stop them, you can start them, increase and decrease whenever you want to, with no cost. The profit share is basically paid on the difference between the revenue that PPS Investments earns and our underlying costs. And that's true across the whole of the PPS group in the different areas where profit share is offered. So at the PPS Investments level, we earn revenue at the product level, so the retirement annuity level, the preservation fund, the living annuity tax-free investments. There's then an administration fee that is charged at that level. And then the second level is those funds I listed earlier. We earn a fee for managing those funds. So where we earn a revenue, we can then pay back profits. And the reason that we're not paying profits on the administration level of this offer is because we're earning zero on it, and therefore it would be unfair for the other members who are paying on that side to be subsidised from this offer. So yeah, if you are invested into any one of our product wrapper levels, and I hope that makes sense when I say that, you will earn profit share on that if you're a qualifying PPS member, but you will only earn profit share on the underlying funds if you're invested in a PPS branded fund. Because we don't earn revenue on the Alan Gray funds or the Coronation funds that are listed on our platform, those third-party managers. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Great. No, thanks so much, James. I think that a lot of people, maybe we can go into a little bit more detail around the special offer. We have Heinrich Holt saying, so this is essentially a decision between penalties versus the cumulative benefit of a 0% administration cost and other qualitative and quantitative benefits. For example, the profit sharing and the family network. And I think that that sort of encapsulates the offer to a large extent. James, Downie, perhaps just to sort of unpack that. And I think just to add to that would be is around, what is the flexibility if I were to move as well. So I think just to unpack maybe a bit more on the sort of benefits, so to speak.
Okay, thanks, Hayley. Yeah, I think Mr. Holt's question is a very good one. It's a bit broader than just a decision between the penalties and the accumulative benefit of the zero admin cost. It's entirely possible, and this is why you need to speak to somebody that has access to the right numbers. It's entirely possible that the investment fees that the member is paying at Sanlam are considerably higher than they would be in Section B. It's not necessarily so, but it's entirely possible. So it's not just the admin cost and the penalties and the admin cost. There could be substantial savings, ongoing savings on the investment fees as well. It is a slightly broader discussion than Mr. Holt has phrased in his question. And hence you need the tool and somebody who can help you say, well, here's what Sanlam's charging you for a balanced fund. Here's what PPS would be charging you for a very similar balanced fund. There could be a substantial saving in that as well. And of course, as he says, there are some qualitative benefits as well. There's obviously the profit share. There's the seamless move into the living annuity when one eventually retires, and a couple of other decisions as well.
Great, thanks so much, James, and to James Fraser as well. I'm just conscious of time, so I think we're going to wrap up. To everyone that's participated, I know we've had about 60 questions come through. We've tried to cover as many as possible. What we'll look to do is, I know that James has answered to some of the questions in the Q&A panel. We've also answered to those that haven't been published individually and privately to people. So we will definitely download those those and make sure that we follow up with you and provide you with the relevant information. Hopefully the session has provided you with a bit more clarity on this exclusive offer. As we said, we've had a great turnout of people wanting to find out more. I think the questions that are asked are very relevant and very pertinent, and hopefully we've been able to answer them succinctly for you. In closing, just to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to participate in this webinar. We will be looking to do further webinars in the future. I think, as we can see, there's a lot of questions coming up from people. There's a lot of sort of answers needed on the specific Section A to Section B and the intra-fund transfer. So James Downie, wanted to thank you so much also for your time. James Fraser as well, thank you so much for joining us. Just to remind you, this webinar is around the intra-fund conversion exclusive offer that we are providing at PPS Investments, which allows you or provides you with a 0% administration fee if you move your assets from the Section A to the Section B part of the fund until I think it's the 31st of September, or the end of September. So we've got a time period that will be available to you to make use of this offer. And I think, James Downie, we've chatted before, and the recommendation is always to speak to your financial advisor, to always, you've got very specific financial needs, and we always recommend that, especially with an offer like this, there's sort of technical information that's needed, and to also understand exactly what your financial situation is. So as always, we recommend that you speak to your financial advisor. And I think on behalf of all of us, we'd like to say thank you so much, and we trust that you enjoy your day further. Goodbye.
Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.